Little Fox.
Little Men, Chapter 1. A new boy arrives.
Hello, my name is Jo Bauer, but readers of Little Women may remember me as Jo March. Yes, I married Professor Fritz Bauer, and we operate a school called Plumfield. It's a few miles outside the town where I lived with my sisters, Meg, Beth, and Amy. Poor Beth passed away, but my other sisters are married and leading happy lives. My younger sister, Amy, is an artist and married to Theodore Lawrence. We call him Laurie because we've known him for years. When we were growing up, he lived next door to us, and his tutor, John Brooks, married my older sister. Meg and John have 10-year-old twins. Demi is a Plumfield student, and Daisy is staying with us because Meg recently had another baby. But that's enough about the past. It's time to meet the little men of Plumfield, and Daisy too.
One rainy spring Saturday, a ragged 12-year-old boy arrived at the door of a large, comfortable house. He gave a timid rap with the brass knocker. Although he could hear children playing inside, no one came to the door. He knocked again, but when no one answered, he hesitantly pushed open the door. And what a sight greeted him! Two boys about his age were playing tag, while two younger boys chased a yellow puppy and a white one. Another boy sat quietly reading on the stairs.
Oh, hello!
A dark-haired girl looked up from her doll.
Are you a new boy?
I don't know yet.
He said shyly.
My name's Nat Blake, and I have a letter from Mrs. Bauer from Mr. Theodore Lawrence. He said she'd take care of me.
Wait here, and I'll take Uncle Laurie's letter to Aunt Jo. I'm Daisy, and that's my brother Demi.
Daisy pointed to the boy reading on the stairs, oblivious to what was happening around him. Suddenly, one of the tag players slid down the banister. Unable to stop, the boy landed with a crash that would have knocked anyone else unconscious. Nat forgot his shyness and ran over, expecting to find the boy half dead. However, the boy simply blinked rapidly and looked up at Nat.
Have you come to join us? I'm Tommy Bangs.
Tommy jumped up as if he'd just remembered his manners.
Come play tag with Jack Ford and me.
I should probably wait to see whether I'm staying.
Nat mumbled, looking around. He saw a large schoolroom and a cozy parlor. A dining room had a table set for supper. As the smell of gingerbread filled the air, Nat's desire to stay grew. Daisy returned with the news that Nat was to stay. She led him to Jo's study.
I'm delighted to see you.
Jo smoothed the hair from Nat's forehead.
I hope you'll be happy here. Oh my, but your feet are wet.
Jo bustled around and found Nat some slippers. She smiled at him.
These are too big, but that'll keep you from running away.
I don't want to run away, ma'am.
Nat dissolved in a fit of coughing.
How long have you been sick?
Jo asked, looking concerned.
I caught a cold this winter and never recovered.
Nat said when he could speak again.
Sit by the fire and we'll get some medicine into you.
Nat had just swallowed a spoonful of medicine when the bell rang for supper. Jo led him into the dining room, where he found a cheerful man sitting with 6 children.
Nat, this is my husband, Professor Bauer.
Joe said.
And I think you've already met our two sons, Rob and Teddy. This is Jack, Tommy, Demi, and Daisy.
Nat nodded shyly and took the empty seat next to Tommy.
Where did you used to go to school?
Tommy asked.
I didn't.
Nat said, and Tommy's eyes widened in surprise.
I worked on the city streets, playing the fiddle with my father and a man named Niccolo.
That sounds like fun!
Tommy said.
It wasn't. I never had enough to eat.
Nat paused to take a bite of gingerbread.
After my father died and I got sick, Niccolo took away my fiddle.
I bet Mr. Bauer will let you play his old fiddle.
Tommy said, making Nat's face brighten with pleasure. Sure enough, after supper, Joe handed a violin to Nat, and he began playing softly. As his confidence grew, the other children stepped closer.
Hey, you're good!
Tommy said.
Play something we know, and we'll sing along.
Soon everyone was singing, but as the last notes died away, Nat began to sob.
Nat, what is it?
Joe asked with alarm.
You're all so kind and...
Nat coughed until he was breathless. Joe wrapped her arms around him.
You have a father and mother now, and this is your home. Don't think of those sad times anymore.
Nat gulped and managed a smile. After a bath, Nat relaxed in front of the fire while Joe bathed Teddy and Rob. When a pillow fight broke out, Joe laughed.
Aren't you going to punish those boys?
Nat asked.
Of course not.
Joe said as Tommy ran into the room and tossed a pillow at her. She fired it right back at him.
Our boys do whatever they want on Saturdays, and that includes pillow fights.
What a nice school this is.
Nat sighed.
It's an odd one,
Joe admitted.
but we don't believe in making children miserable with too many rules and too much studying.
Little Men, Chapter 2, A Book and a Tour. On Sunday morning, Nat eagerly ran downstairs, but he started coughing as soon as he greeted Joe.
No church for you today.
Joe said with a frown.
You should stay home with my sons and me.
But they're practically babies, and I'm 12 years...
Nat's coughs interrupted his protest. So Nat spent the morning in Joe's study, learning a hymn and listening to her read aloud. Joe showed him her Sunday closet, which was filled with books, art supplies, and building blocks.
I want everyone to treat Sunday as a day for quiet activities,
she explained.
but you can still learn things on Sundays.
You mean lessons about how to be good?
Joe nodded and reached for a thick book filled with handwritten pages. She flipped to a page with only one word at the top, Nat.
That's my name.
He cried, looking both surprised and interested.
Yes, I have a page for each boy. I keep track of how he behaves during the week and show it to him on Sunday night. If the report is bad, I'm disappointed. If it's good, I'm proud.
Joe went on.
No matter what, I hope the boys know I want to help them. I also hope they'll try their best because they love Mr. Bauer and me.
Oh, I'll try to make you proud.
Joe hugged Nat.
I'll be happy if you follow our few rules. get along with the other boys, and learn something.
After lunch, Joe took her sons and Daisy into town to visit family. Everyone else went for a long walk, but Nat wasn't strong enough for that much exercise. So, Tommy offered to show him the gardens and the animals. First, they strolled into the barn.
We all have pets.
Tommy explained, proudly showing off his guinea pig.
Those white mice are Rob's, and Demi keeps turtles over there.
What's in this box?
Nat asked, pointing to a deep box half full of dirt.
That's Jack's worm farm. He digs up worms and keeps them there until we go fishing so he can sell them to us. Last time, he charged me too much for some little worms. But that's Jack. He loves money.
Who owns the puppies I saw in the house?
Nat asked.
The white one is Rob's, and the yellow one is Teddy's. They like to chase Daisy's cat, Topaz.
Nat looked around the barn at all the animals.
That donkey would be my first choice for a pet.
He said, remembering how far he used to walk with his violin. Riding a donkey would have saved him lots of time.
Mr. Lawrence gave Toby to Mrs. Bauer so she and Teddy can ride when we go for walks.
Nat shook his head in amazement.
Where do you get all these animals?
We find them or buy them, or people give them to us. My father sent mine. Here, I'll show you my 2 chickens.
Nat sighed because he had neither the money to buy a pet nor a father to buy him one. He followed Tommy into the hayloft.
I'll tell you what I'll do.
Tommy said.
I hate hunting for eggs. If you gather them, I'll give you 1 egg from every dozen. I sell them to Mrs. Bauer, and when you've got a dozen, she'll pay you too.
Then I can buy whatever I want.
Nat said, grinning at the prospect. He quickly found 2 eggs, and Tommy generously let him keep one right away. Then, Tommy wrote Tommy Bangs and Company on the barn wall with a piece of chalk.
You can keep track of your eggs here.
Tommy said, handing Nat the chalk. After that, the boys went outside, where Nat met 2 horses, 6 cows, 1 calf, and 3 pigs. Tommy and Nat climbed into a willow tree that hung over a brook.
You can see our gardens from here.
Tommy said.
Everybody grows a different type of plant.
Do you think I'll have a garden?
Nat asked eagerly.
Of course you will.
Said a friendly voice below. The boys looked down and saw the professor, who had just returned from his walk. Nat easily climbed down from the tree, but Tommy fell into the brook.
Are you okay?
Nat cried. Tommy climbed out of the water with a rueful grin.
Yeah, that happens all the time.
He said, and hurried to the house to dry off.
How are things going?
The professor asked Nat.
Are you prepared for school tomorrow?
Well,
Nat paused.
I'm worried the boys will laugh when they see how little I know.
Ah, but you have skills and qualities they lack. You can play the violin, and you want to learn?
Mr. Bauer patted Nat's shoulder.
Don't worry. The boys will help you with your lessons.
And Nat soon found that to be true. As time passed, he settled in, planting beans in his garden and earning money by fiddling at neighbors' picnics.
Oh, Fritz, he reminds me so much of Beth and her music.
Joe whispered one evening, as she and the professor listened to Nat.
Yes, Nat's a good boy, although he sometimes tells lies. Last week he denied stepping on plants in the garden, even though there were witnesses. And today he lied to me about studying for a test.
Nat learned from his father that lying is the best way to avoid punishment.
Joe said.
They're mostly small lies.
The professor went on.
But nevertheless, I'm afraid they'll get him into trouble one day.
Little Men, Chapter 3, Fun for Daisy.
Aunt Joe!
Daisy cried, dashing into Joe's study.
The boys won't let me play football! They say girls can't play football!
That's ridiculous!
Joe retorted, putting down her pen.
I know girls can play because I did it when I was young.
Daisy sighed.
I'm tired of doing things by myself. Will you play with me?
I will later, but right now I'm getting ready to go into town. Come with me, and if you want, you can stay with your mother for a few days.
I'd like to see Mama and baby Josie, but I don't want to stay with them. Demi would miss me and I love being here.
All right, but how will you entertain yourself until I'm ready?
Daisy shrugged and said,
Can you make up a new game or activity for me?
It'll take a while to think up something brand new. Why don't you see what Asia is preparing for lunch?
That's a good idea!
Daisy cried, running off to visit the cook in her kitchen. In 5 minutes, Daisy returned with a spot of flour on her nose.
Please, Aunt Joe, may I make cookies with Asia?
She asked.
I won't bother her, and it would be such fun!
Go ahead and stay as long as you like.
Joe said, relieved that Daisy had found something to do. And suddenly, Joe knew how to keep her niece entertained. That afternoon, Daisy visited her mother, Meg, while Joe went shopping. Joe returned later with many mysterious parcels, but all she said was,
They're for Daisy.
When it was time to leave, Meg tied Daisy's bonnet.
Be a good girl for Aunt Joe. She's very kind to think of this for you because she doesn't like this activity much herself.
At this, the two sisters burst out laughing, which only increased Daisy's curiosity. All the way home, Daisy pestered Joe with questions.
Have I ever seen this game before?
You've never seen one as nice as this.
Joe replied. Daisy heard something rattling in the back of the carriage.
Is it for the boys too?
She asked.
No, it's just for you and me and Bess.
Joe said. Bess was Daisy's cousin, Lori and Amy's daughter.
I ran into Uncle Laurie in town, and he helped me choose the different parts.
Oh, the game must be wonderful because Uncle Laurie buys the best presents,
Daisy said. By the time they reached home, Daisy was nearly wild with anticipation. But Joe said Daisy couldn't do the new activity until she finished her lessons the next day. Daisy's excitement soon spread to the boys, who offered to help Joe set up Daisy's present.
Sorry, no boys allowed,
Joe said, treating the 4 boys exactly as they'd treated Daisy. At this, the boys meekly went away and sought out Daisy. They offered to play football, marbles, or anything she liked, but Daisy only shook her head and smiled, delighted to turn them down. The next morning, Daisy quickly finished her lessons. Joe took her up to the playroom, where Daisy heard something bubbling.
It's a real little kitchen!
Daisy cried. She ran over to the stove and saw a boiling tea kettle. On either side of the stove were shelves filled with measuring cups, mixing bowls, and pots and pans. Cabinets held spices and other ingredients.
You had so much fun making cookies that I decided you needed a kitchen of your own.
Joe explained.
Why don't you pretend you're a cook now and go to market?
Daisy looked perplexed.
But where's the market?
She asked.
In Asia's kitchen, of course.
Daisy went downstairs and returned with a potato, some squash, and the ingredients for a small pie. With Joe's help, she quickly made the pie and put it in the oven. Next, she boiled the potato and steamed the squash. After setting the table, she admired the contents of her kitchen, as well as her new apron and cap. But when she checked on her pie, she saw that disaster had struck.
Aunt Joe, the pie burned!
Tears rolled down Daisy's face.
Oh no!
Joe cried, putting down the book she was reading to Teddy.
I should have paid more attention.
Using a pot holder, she removed the blackened pastry from the oven.
When we were shopping for your kitchen, Uncle Laurie took great delight in reminding me of my cooking disasters. This pie isn't fit to eat, but I'm sure your dolls will enjoy the rest of the meal.
No sooner had Daisy settled her dolls at the table than the boys swarmed into the room.
What are you cooking?
Demi asked.
It smells delicious.
Nat added, rubbing his belly.
Hey, that steamer looks like something we could use.
Tommy said to Jack. Daisy looked alarmed when Jack nodded in agreement and said,
That heavy pot would be perfect for melting down.
Aha!
Just then, Mr. Bauer arrived.
So this is your new kitchen, Daisy. I hope you're a better cook than Aunt Joe.
All right, Fritz, that's enough.
Joe said, clapping her hands and frowning at her husband.
Everyone out of the kitchen except Daisy.
But we haven't told Daisy what we want her to make for us.
Tommy protested.
What about my favorite German dish? Cabbage soup with herring and cherries.
Mr. Bauer suggested.
I can't even make that.
Joe said, shaking her head. But Daisy was ready for another cooking challenge.
I'll give it a try, Uncle Fritz.
She said happily. Little